Welcome to the TSC Studio podcast.
So hello and welcome to the 7th episode of our podcast, and today we're talking about world building and character design. So this will probably be the last podcast we do in this type of format. We might be moving over to a more live stream type thing in the new year. So we thought we'll have some fun and do one last, talking about the world we're all working so hard and expanding. And today we're joined by Dominic, who hasn't been with us for a while, so he is blessing us with his presence.
Yo.
And also One Apple.
Hello.
And Tanner.
That's me.
So, the first question we got going today is, should you create the universe first and then the story, or create the story first and then build the universe around these stories? Like, I feel like the obvious answer to like what you should in generally do is do the stories first and then build the universe around it, which I feel like most people do. But there are arguments for the other way around, which I will go into. But I want to hear everybody else's opinions. So Dominic, what do you think?
Well, I think it's a weird take. Not a weird take. I think it's an interesting take coming from someone who's such a big fan of Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, well, I was going to go into that.
Yeah, like, if you look at, like, Tolkien, like, everything that Tolkien wrote was just, he made a language and then made a world and then wrote a story about it.
Yeah. That was gonna be what I was gonna bring up about the other way around. Like, there are people that are just simply more interested in the world, and the stories can evolve out of that and be successful. But that might not be the creator's main priority.
Yeah. If you want this video to be 6 hours long, we can have a discussion about whether it works out or not, because I have some opinions on Lord of the Rings that you do not agree with.
Everybody is allowed to have different opinions. That's fine.
I think generally, like, you should always start with the story, because well, again, it depends on what you're doing. If you're just like, if it's something that's just for you, because a lot of people literally will just make up fantasy worlds just for themselves, just something to have to work on as a hobby, as a little, like, a personal escape. That if that's all you're doing, you just want to create a world with like fun characters and fun things, I think that's fine. But if your goal is to create something to be shared, then you should start with the story, because if you start with the story is going to be better. Like, I want to say, like, just overall, you're probably going to have a better story, and then the world can come second to that.
You're not going to be like boggled down with like all the work you have to do to set up a world, while also like doing a story, and the story gets limited by what you have set up instead of the other way around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the story should, if you're trying to create something to be shared, then yeah, you should never create a situation where you're being hindered by the world that you've created, especially when what it's hindering is the story, because the story is what everyone's there for.
So Tanner, you have been working on your Dark Times world for a bit now, but I believe you started story, right?
Yes, because, I think it's a lot easier to start small scale and build outwards than to have all this scale at the beginning and then try to get a story within that, because then it's like, I don't know, am I doing too little at the start? Am I doing too much at the start? I feel like in my specific case, I've always tried to go bigger in scope, and that's really worked out in terms of like writing lore and like expanding my interest in the world. Whereas if like I just knew everything already, the only thing that would be interesting is coming up with a story. I would not be coming up with more world building things because I would have it already.
You like to explore your world as you go, basically.
Yeah.
So Apple, when it comes to your projects, I feel like you tend to go for more like the mood than the world. What you do in turn, you like expand a world when you work on a project.
Yes, that's
how
correct.
How is that experience for you?
Pretty freeing. I like everyone's mentioned, you're not really constrained to a set of rules that you set yourself with this universe. And since I haven't actually planned it out ahead of time, I kind of have the flexibility to just do whatever I want. So with my current projects, I just create the story, and then naturally it'll somehow connect with the other projects.
Well, have you gone away from connected universes now, or are you still doing that?
So before we had that the corrupted universe, so that one was trying to build something, like build the universe, but I didn't feel like it was for me. So now I just write stories without that kind of limitation. I just write what I want, and somehow it will all make sense.
Yeah, so that's a very different take from what like me and Tanner would do. I feel like I probably am doing like the extreme version of it. Tanner is like getting there, and you're not necessarily thinking about the extended world outside of the projects, are you?
No, not necessarily thinking outside of what goes beyond the story. No.
Yeah, that's. I mean, like that's. How would you compare that? Like that now, for example, when it comes to like DC comic movies and stuff like that, they're starting a new universe right now, but they also have like the Elseworld films that they want to make that are like not confined to like these shared universes and stuff like that. I feel like that's the more type of storytelling you would do then. But
I think focusing on what I think there's obviously advantages to both. I think it's interesting in a short time frame, just not worrying about the world and just doing individual stories. You'll generally, not saying that you can't have a good story if you're doing world building as well, but I think generally if you focus on the story will be better. But it is interesting when you have these stories in, like for like TSC, where we have like this big world that's been built, and now the story and the world are very much intertwined. One thing that you can have with a very detailed world versus like a smaller scale story that isn't so concerned about that is you can have these Marvel cinematic moments where you can pay off something that happened a long time ago, as like the nostalgia bait callback. But I think you can do it in a tasteful way that's rewarding, which is something that you can't really see if you're just doing a smaller story or a story that's not connected without or within like another world.
I think the way projects do that aren't part of like an expanded world is by doing references to older projects or something like that. I think that's the way they do something similar of what you're talking about, but yet it's like it comes very natural with an expanded world. Okay, let's get to the first Lord Skilled quiz. Skilled is not with us here today, so I'm taking over, and we're gonna be sharing images of locations in the world, and it's up to you guys to guess where the location is and what project it featured in. So
I'm screwed.
They call me TSC Rainbolt. We got this.
Yeah. So since you talked Apple,
yes,
we're gonna start with you. Okay, so you can get help. I won't be too harsh on you if you don't know the location, but if you can know the project, that's
okay.
what we'll go for here.
We'll see.
There you go.
Let's see.
Is the location. What do we see? There's a building.
Yeah, there's a
little tower-like
Yeah.
thing. There's a table. Oh,
This
fuck,
is-
I should
no,
have
this
given
is
it to
not-
Tanner.
It's not the building I'm thinking of. It was.
There's a table.
There's a
outside.
table. Oh wait, isn't this that one scene in? Isn't that the 8 where the 8 gathered?
Yes,
point?
yes, it is.
Hold
Good
on.
job, Apple.
I just don't know where exactly. But I know. I recognize the table.
The tricky thing is, I realized this as I was posting, that this is like along a border of Hurricane, and like the Kalo lands. So that's why it's a little bit tricky.
I would have guessed Procania with those trees in the background.
It's close to Procania too. It's like a very point. Tree-ish area. Like the train goes by this location when leaving Hurricane.
Yes. That's how I describe forests. Tree-ish areas.
Yes, in Procania. That's what trees are. Okay. Now I'm interested to see if Tanner will guess his one.
Well, we'll see.
But, okay, let's see if you get this one. What do we see here? It's a lot of more stone structures.
Oh, Jesus.
There's a statue on top of a building. Wait, let me just ask. Apple, do you have any idea without saying? You can say no.
I got nothing.
Okay, Dominic, do you know?
I told you I'm TSC Rainbolt. I could put you in like the exact block that you're standing on. I know where that is.
Yeah. Okay.
So this is giving like the area where Jacob and Elena were fighting in the Tribunal Part 1 at night. Like that's what this is giving. I'm gonna guess
it's a very big location. I can say that. We have been there.
It's
multiple
not the
times.
capital. I don't think it's the capital because I've been flying around there recently with all the train stuff, and I don't recognize that statue, so I'm gonna go with Yaron.
Yeah, woo! Good job.
Huge.
So
now,
this is
what
like
project it's from? No idea.
Well, we have seen this location in the main series quite a few times. We've gone there and we've seen the statue. We've been under that statue in the main series, and we also go there towards the end, or no, in the beginning of the third act in Lothane, when right after Baron betrays her, and some of the guys are being sent to the Mistlands, and she goes to find him, and she's standing almost right where this picture was taken, actually.
Dang.
Okay.
I wouldn't have guessed that, but I'm glad I got Yaron.
Okay, now I'm interested to see how quickly Dominic is going to get this one. I tried to make it a little bit hard, but like if you know, you know. So let's see. Well, let's first say what we see here. We see some more wooden structures. We see a harbor-looking thing. Yeah, that's about what we see. Is there anything familiar about this to you, Dominic?
Okay, so it's one of two places. Mm-hmm. I'll talk you through my thought process. So right away, I see like the wooden houses, and I see those like rocky spires in the background that are kind of hidden, like those sort of rocky like towers. Those are normally in Osunder, Procania, but I know that there are a couple of those in the capital of Osunder. This is like, so it's either the left side when you're looking at like Osunder's capital from the ocean. The left side, there's a small little like fishing village. It's either that village or it's the dockyard where Baron and Rebecca have their sword fight, and you're just hiding on the bottom half of the photo. You're hiding the part where the dock extends and you see the boat that Catherine and Vladimir pick up Stefan in. But I'm gonna go with my gut because of the rocks and say that this is Osunder. This is the capital of Osunder.
So this is the location where Rebecca and Baron fought to the death.
Oh,
you had it. You were so close.
I knew it was
That
one of the
would've been
two,
my
but
guess.
the rocks threw me.
Yeah, it's very close to Osunder border too. So that's probably why. But that's the building right there that they go into, and they have their standoff and all that stuff. But yeah, you had it though. Like you were there. Like
it was 50-50.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, let's moving on. How do you create your set locations? Do you build them from scratch or download builds from the internet? Well, I can say that there's rarely been a case of us downloading anything. We might have like taken inspiration from things online, but we have built everything from scratch, and mostly it's like nameless structures. Like he has like a whole range of like buildings in our world. And also like me, I've done a lot of builds since the days of 2015. And
Nameless is a person.
Yes.
yeah, Nameless is a person. He's just called Nameless. He's the one that's hosted our server and our world and done a lot of buildings. And did you help building in Alorian, Apple?
Yeah, I did. I helped you build
Yeah.
the first actual building in Alorian.
Yeah, okay, that's nice.
Yeah.
And Tanner, I remember vaguely you helping with the town in Osunder for Remnant.
Yeah, I built a couple buildings in there. It was fun. And a couple sewer decorations.
Mm-hmm. And then I vaguely remember dragging Dominic with me too on a few set builds.
Yeah.
Is there anyone you remember specifically, Dominic?
Like over the course of the whole.
Yeah, like
Since
that,
we
like
started?
that. Yeah, that we worked on that was like big or something.
Not something that was big. Like obviously, like Halo and like a lot of the bigger cities have been like ongoing projects for a really long time. I really enjoyed building the city in Yaron that Rebecca, like in the Lithane film, where she loses to Gillian that first time. They spend like the first act in that village.
I love that
just
town.
because that town is really nice, and I remember that was a big community event that we did where there was like probably 5 or 6 of us at one point all building together.
Yeah, I think I have a time lapse of it too.
Yeah, it was just like a cool hangout. Everyone got together and built, and it was a fun time. I remember that fondly.
We should do that again.
That'd be so awesome.
I'm gonna need it because I remember building most of the new expansion of Etheria by myself, and oh my god, that was pain. And that was a lot of work. Okay, I'm curious. What do you build them from scratch, Apple?
My most recent project, yeah, I built a lot of the sets myself. I've gotten schematics for the trees and that one hospital scene, but that's about it for Red Tears. With my previous work, yeah, I mainly just grabbed some maps from online and tweak it to what I need it for.
Tanner, I know you have had like a mix. Or at least you have like gotten maps and then you have changed them up and stuff.
Yeah, I usually like get a map for the exterior and kind of knowing the scale of what I'm gonna do, and then I'll decorate the shit out of it.
Yeah, I mean, you with your chisels and bits is like, oh my god.
Yeah, I love chisels and bits, so I will always, go as far as I can with decorating with them, as well as like the DecoCraft mod and Mr. Crayfish's furniture. But there are a couple sets that I built from scratch because I couldn't get like something that I wanted from the internet. One of those being the Temple of Spirits in my recent project, which was basically entirely out of bits.
So that whole thing is like from scratch.
Yeah. That thing
cool.
takes up gigabytes on my computer.
Yeah, imagine the whole world of TSC. So
Yeah, I
that's
can't imagine.
That's something you wanted to talk about too, is like the fact that we have the whole world to work in.
It's so impressive. I mean, to get that many kingdoms into one world is crazy. That must have taken so freaking long and so much effort. How did you do it? Did you start with all of your sets in one world but scattered in random places? Or did you have like different Minecraft worlds that you had to copy and paste with schematics?
I'll see if I can for the edit see if we can get some pictures of like that old save we had. So like back from 2015 to like or 14 to like 2018, 19, we had the set world where we only had like the specific locations and what we could see in frame. and they were like plots almost scattered over a flat world. And there were so many locations built there over the years. Like all of the original series was filmed on that. And then we finished the series and we were gonna start expanding the world. And for a long time I tried to get somebody to help me make it in World Painter. But it was such a big project. Until I decided I'm gonna sit down, I'm gonna learn this, and I'm gonna spend all the time I need to make it perfect once, so I never have to do it again. And then I just made it as big as I possibly could. I knew exactly what I needed because I've been working on this world since I was 8 years old, so I know where everything is and how it is. And then we, once we had the world, we could start just moving everything over from one world to the other, which was easy when we had like a server where we could host both worlds. And yeah.
So what Yannicke is saying is you could roleplay in the world of TSC as a character, and you could walk from one town to the next seamlessly.
Sounds sick.
It's really impressive.
Seamlessly.
Some walks might be a little long, but
Yeah. Well, and there are still some remnants of like the fact that some of the original sets were sets and not full locations. Sometimes when you're walking around, you do notice that there'll be like a certain set will just end, like it'll be like a house and then just nothing, because like the way that they were, you know, copy pasted from the set world into the real world, and if they were sets that we never used again, we never like there was room to polish them.
Like I think the biggest example is the Precanian capital, which is just the throne room, a street, and some another street with houses. That was gonna be a project that never got made. But that's like the most biggest unfinished thing we have in world. But like that's the nice thing though, like the plan is always to like one day we'll have all this. The more projects we do, the more it will be built and expanded and finished. So that's what I love about it, at least. There's a little bit of issue of like we keep moving around in our timeline, so cities change, areas change, so that's the little dilemma there. But mostly we move forward, so it's fine. But yeah, I think you want to try do this, Tanner, but it's like just a big.
yeah, I tried, but the hardest thing was scale, because I have a map of my world, but it's just made in like another program. So I was trying to stay consistent with that, but then I had like a set that was really a tiny island on the map, but when I put it in game, it needed to be fucking huge. And like the space between the islands was just really small in game. So I ran into a ton of issues, but I did learn a little bit of World Painter, and I did enjoy it. So, but it was hard. So I respect the hell out of you for somehow making a beautiful world with it.
Yeah, I think like while Landra or like the world is huge, it's still not as huge as it should be. Really, like the region should be a lot bigger. Like it should maybe. As it takes like an hour to go through the whole continent, it should maybe take like an hour to just go through a region. In reality. But we have enough space to do the different locations. So it's like it works for what we need it to be. So, how do you create your set locations? How do you make your sets contribute to the world building of your project? How to make different locations in the world unique and distinguishable from each other? I mean, we have pretty straight, clear lines of like themes and aesthetics. And like some are like very basic too. If you know you're in the south, you get the desert and the mesas. You're in the north, you get the mountains and the snow. In the middle, you get more forest and fields. And then you go to the Mistlands, you get the jungles, more tropical. So they're very distinguishable in that way. But we also try to keep very unique structure styles. And like cultures is something we implement a lot. So they're like, should be very easy to know where you are in the world. What do you think, Dominic?
Yeah, I think if you want to make an interest, like when it comes to the world building and the building of the sets, like those two things have to be married to each other. Like you can't build interesting, memorable sets if you haven't put in the work in the world building to flesh out what a place should look like, even when it comes down to like the small things of, like you said, like culture and identity. Like you should be, even if the two sets are in similar geographic regions, like they're both in a mountain, like a village in Acacia in a mountain should look distinct from a village in like Percania, because you put in the effort to think, well, how do the people in this world live? What kind of things do they do? Like what's the architectural styles? Like a lot of the times we'll pull from history or from actual cultures and use those as a reference, or pull from like other inspirations like fantasy and things like that. Like you can use what you have to build like a pseudo culture in order to create like distinct, visually interesting things. Like I think that the GeoGuessr game we just played is a great example of like being able to make each location look distinct so that you can see just a photo and know where you are.
Yeah, exactly. And I remember I was talking a lot about it too, Apple, once we worked on Alorian.
Yeah.
It's like how very, like this, when you're in Alorian, you know you're in Alorian. Like it's such cozy, like this Italian type vibe by the lakeside, and like I always said, like if I would live in Landra, I would live in Alorian type thing. So Tana, how does that work for you in your world? Because you have less like a combined region with different areas. You got more islands, more like there's a lot more traveling in yours.
Yeah. There was an event that kind of rose the sea level by a lot in a lot of places. So now they're islands, and a lot of what is so distinct between the islands is just the biomes. Mm-hmm. And then the style of the kingdoms mostly comes from the people who made the maps. And what's nice is that I can take inspiration from somebody else's work to form like the culture of the people there, or the overall aesthetic of the place. Mm-hmm. So I kind of similar, but a lot of the work is done for me.
Yeah. And I think the type of thing you can do with the scenario you have, with it being like the sea levels rising and islands are being more like isolated, is that it would be like, okay, how does these islands evolve without the connection of the other places? Or do they have easy trade with some places and some not? How does that affect the world? That's the type of thing I would look into when it comes to a scenario like that.
Yeah, definitely.
I think
there'd be a lot of consequences.
Yeah, I think set building can really be like a writer's dream. It's this, writing is one thing, and writing and then making the story is great. But there's something really special about building a set and putting in little things that you, as the writer who understands this world that's been created, you know why it's important, and someone else may never know. Like, it'll never be mentioned, it'll never be important, but in the back of your mind, you can know if someone ever asks, oh, why is that house like that and not like this? you can be like, oh yeah, well that's because of this reason, because you just know the world so well. And I think that's a really fun part of the set building process. Like, not to go into too much detail, but like working on the project that we're working on now, like the final to the Tribunal storyline, we just built like a new city, and we've been talking a lot about visual metaphors and how the way a city can be built can represent different things within the story and within the world, and explains sort of some background into the way that the people that live there think. I think that stuff is so fun as a writer, to just sit down and talk about it and to understand your world at a level deeper than you'll ever really need to know, but you do it because you love the world.
Some of the things that I feel like adds the most flavor to our world is the Percanian Empire. Because that like is stretched like throughout. It was an empire after all. So it affected a lot of places, and we have a lot of historical pieces in our world from it. In the middle of the capital, there's this like monument which points north and south, which stands in the place of what was a statue of a person, which was Bastian the Emperor. And the statue is like broken and fallen down into the water underneath the monument. There's like, we have not shown it in any project ever, but it's there. And also in that village we talked about earlier in Yaran used to be like prisoners of the Percanian Empire. So like there's a monument of a bird by the harbor there, which was like made out of the metal from the chains of the slaves that were sent there. That's all that type of stuff we have there that it, like nobody needs to know, but we know. It's there. It's a world. How do you create a cinematic universe? Do you get inspired by real history, real continents, and real culture? How do you explore different areas and different ages of your universe through different stories? How do you connect everything together? Dominic, can you take this one?
I mean, that's a lot. I feel like we definitely, I sort of touched on it with the set building thing. I'm always taking inspiration from, again, more from the writing perspective, but also from like the set building perspective, the world building perspective. I'm always taking inspiration from the real world, or from even not necessarily, okay, how do I phrase this? I guess everything takes inspiration from the real world, because that's what everyone understands. So even if you're not directly taking it from the real world, or say I'm taking it from another story that I've read, that story is probably taking it from something that really happened. Mm-hmm. So when it comes to building a world and like the idea of timelines and periods in history, I'm always thinking about how something happened in history and how it affected us, and then applying that to the world to see how it would affect them. A good example would be like the Tribunal takeover. When we were establishing the rules of Etheria in the new Tribunal series, I used a lot of references to like Cold War Europe with like the Soviets, the Soviet bloc versus like the Western superpowers. The idea of this, you know, the iron wall, and like these sort of how our world was actually affected by having two superpowers that hate each other, that live right next to each other. And we use that as inspiration to understand what Etheria and Londra would look like and how they would interact with each other in our world. And like those references and those comparisons are super apparent, because it's something that's really, if you can't just theory craft what would happen, and why would you waste your time thinking about what would happen when you can just look at what actually did happen and use that as the building blocks.
Yeah, I was literally about to say, it's like what you're talking about is it's really good foundation for your story and your characters. Because then because of it being a made up world, it will naturally, because of other things too, go in a certain direction, because things affect each other, a cause and effect. And even if you have like the foundation of something that is based on something real, it might go another direction because of something else. but you also have to put in mind that you're trying to tell a story with a point too. What are you saying by referencing this real history type thing? That's also like something to keep in mind.
Well, I'll add in real quick. Another great example of the idea of like you were saying about how the world, like the fantasy world, can elevate the real history because it's different. I think a great example of taking history and then applying fantasy to it to make it bigger, more theatrical. Game of Thrones. George R.R. Martin. Talks about. He's a huge history buff. Like a lot of that story is based very heavily on like the War of the Roses and like ancient, not ancient history, but like medieval history. And if you ever listen to him talking about the inspiration for the Wall in Game of Thrones, he described how he based the Wall on the idea of Hadrian's Wall, which was this wall that the Roman Empire built across the United Kingdom to separate the Roman side from like the northern side with the barbarians that lived outside of the Roman Empire. And he described his feeling, the idea of imagining yourself as a Roman warrior on top of Hadrian's Wall, looking out at this wall at the barbarian lands before you. And, in real life, it was just people, on opposite sides of a wall. But he said, okay, but what if there was actually a monster on the other side? And what if the wall was 100 meters tall and made out of ice and there was dragons? Mm-hmm. And suddenly this sort of simple idea of a wall that was built to separate these two different people becomes this fantasy set piece that's like iconic. Like everyone knows the wall from Game of Thrones. Like it's such a big thing, but it's based on such a simple, real thing that actually happened. And the way that people think about the wall and what that wall represented in Hadrian's Wall, how would that apply with the lens of a fantasy setting?
George R.R. Martin is like the prime example of taking history and making it into something epic, or like another story, or like how to use it as a tool, I'd say. Okay, I think we'll move into the next, what's it called, like the trial of Lord's Guild. This time we're gonna showcase some concept art of something we would like to see be done in the future of TSC. Apple, we can start with yours.
Mm-hmm. I'm just kidding.
Well, what do you have for us?
Yes, I have concept art of a fishing village.
Ooh.
I think Urka needs some more love, and I think this reminds me of an Andalorian-esque town.
I see. I was gonna say, I think we have a location like this. At least it's very similar.
Similar one? I don't recall.
It's in Huracan. In season 3 of the Shadow Crown series, the rebels hide away in this like little town, which is like hidden inside a little lagoon or something like similar to what you just sent.
Okay.
But it's not quite the same, but like it's a nice catch you got there.
It's been Hurricanified.
Yeah.
Dirtier and muddier and not as pretty.
Yeah, pretty much.
Worse in almost every way.
But yeah, I can do mine, I guess. So something I believe I want to do this at some point, but it's like not in like any near future. It's like I want to explore a more different culture that we haven't seen that much of in TSC, which is more Asian type regions, and like take it out to like an epic scale and what can we do with that. And I found this example of what there like a city has like been built inside this craterish like what do you call it, like a quarry. Yeah, I think that's a cool idea of like history that is like shown in like one image. Yeah, that's something I want to see. I want to explore that places like that.
It's really cool.
Tanner, what do you got?
Volition Chronicles Chapter 3 obviously features a train, and so it kind of feels like the world is getting more steampunk fantasy. And to just go all out in that direction, I've got a picture here of an airship.
Jeez.
You mean this whole image is what you want to see, or just the ship?
The whole image, because it kind of looks like something I could see in TSC. A giant city with kind of almost like a war of ships. It'd take a long time to get there, but
I just imagine building all this and all the particles of the smoke and.
That's when you use GIFs, Yannick.
Yeah, I should maybe take a note from you and start using GIFs instead of particles.
Laggy game.
Really cool. Dominic, what do you have?
Yeah, so it's my image, some lava,
it's hell.
Edgy boy.
We're going to
hell. No. Yeah, I like I like ancient ruins. I like anything that's sort of like this whole podcast have been talking about history and culture and stuff. I love the idea of like ancient cultures and the idea of, in a world building setting, going to a place that was once lived in but isn't anymore. So the idea of going to like ruins and ancient civilizations where you're like, yo, there's this dude with lava and a crazy skull mask. What's his deal? You don't get to know, but someone did at one point and they built it.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, I love ancient ruins. I like when you can see something and be like, that's crazy, and we're not gonna explain why it's there, but leave it up to the imagination.
We had a lot more of that back in the original series too, when they were in the Mistlands, because we had the Cantrock ruins. There was a lot of abandoned stuff in there, and also when we went to Larigana and saw like the ancient statue of Sauron. So it's like we have in Tribunal we went to the Temple of the Guardian. That was like kind of similar to that too.
This screenshot kind of reminds me of Baldur's Gate.
Oh yeah. When you say it, how do you come up with the sign for a character? Okay, so since we have done a lot of world building, I feel like you didn't get a chance, Apple. So let's talk about your characters. You have very distinct characters in your projects.
Do I?
How do you come up with your designs?
Like I do with world building, I don't think about it. I usually that's the thing though. I just write the story. It's like, oh, okay, I'll use the Red Peter story as an example. So, okay, investigation, crime story. There's gotta be a detective, right? So, my example is not going to be the best because I don't make skins. I just find skins online, tweak it a bit. So when it comes to like what distinct characteristics for giving character, I don't know what to tell you. It's just I find something that looks cool.
So you're basically saying it looks cool.
Basically I find something that looks
Okay.
cool. Does it mesh well with the other character designs? If so, I will go with that. And yeah.
What about you, Tanner? You tend to do like these HD skins.
Yeah, well, first of all, I like having my cast of characters just be all sorts of like skin colors and builds and genders, just as diverse as possible. Even like outfit colors, I try to get every sort of color in there. And then for really like important characters, there are like kind of these godlike figures in my universe, and they all get these HD outfits, and they're pretty HD. My friend and artist who did them, Chrissy, is very talented. And then I also have a couple HD skins from Bin of Trash.
Yeah. I tend to use Blood and Dirt from Bin of Trash.
The Blood and Dirt are crazy.
That's like some of the HD things I do. It's like the Blood and Dirt. See, there's rarely been a case where I have started from scratch with a skin. What I tend to do is search medieval skin collection Planet Minecraft, and I get the chunks of like skins that I can go from, and then I try to like change them to fit the characters in the script, or sometimes I'll mix up the skins to create something new. I've tried to think, is there a character we have like done from scratch? I don't think so. Like, I know Rebecca is like the most straight up, almost just is what I found online. But of course, like as a character develops, like they change over time too, so they get changes, which is fun to see. I think actually the one we have the most skins of is Sladimir, just because Raph wanted to make all the skins for Sladimir. And
new outfit every scene.
Yeah, and Rebecca has quite a few skins. I love Eye Patch Rebecca, but I think she's my favorite. And yeah, I think, I remember Gillian was very heavily based on concept art. We got quite a few characters, and I want to focus even more on it than I have, to make them more distinct, so you know they all are very memorable in their own way. I think we got quite a few memorable characters just by their looks alone. But I want
especially like Jed and Leo.
Yeah.
And Diano.
Rosargo.
Rebecca.
Rebecca. Yeah. I think even as new additions like Dalton and
Dalton.
And even Oscar. Oscar is very distinguishable. How do you make skins memorable is the next question. How do you? I feel like a trick. I feel like silhouettes are a thing. So it's probably like when it comes to Minecraft, that's really hard. You can't really do silhouettes. But like if you include like a weapon, like if I did a silhouette of Rosargo, you would know it's Rosargo based on the Naginata he's holding, or like the Rebecca with her golden sword. Yeah, I think that's how we do it.
Trident.
Yeah, Trident.
Leo and Apple.
I think that is an interesting limitation of Machinima that results in some cool workarounds. Like you're saying, the idea of a character where, you know, in Minecraft where they all have the same dimensions, giving them like a unique like item or tool or some sort of, you know, trinket that they can hold or can be like associated to them, makes them more distinct and gives them that silhouette. And, you know, now I'm thinking about it, it's like almost all of our characters have something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Because that is how, like, as a silhouette, they will be recognizable. But in itself, like, we do, like, color is a very important thing. They might have, like, some eye thing. Like, Diano also has, like, the eye thing of, like, the two colors. And Jed has, like, the white hair. Trying to think. Aaron has had, like, he has had, like, a gradual gone away from the Percanian colors. The red mask for the Ravagers. That's very distinguishable. Rosargo just being this big red armor. That has that thing. But like, there's other ways. We can kinda control shapes now in Blockbuster. So like we can do size. Like I believe Dalton is slightly higher than or bigger than all the other characters. Yeah. But that's kind of like what we gotta work with. Then we're gonna end this final, at least pre-recorded podcast with everybody kind of sharing a type of favorite moment you have had with TSC or TSC Studio. Apple, let's begin with you.
I'd say the early morning for me, waking up before premieres.
So like right now.
No, like way earlier than that.
No, he hates this.
Oh, it needs to be earlier. Okay, I got you.
Yeah. No, I missed it. Those were simpler times. I feel old saying that, but they really were simple times. I can just wake up early and actually just hang out with you guys before premieres, playing some mini games and just chat. And then my second, I know this is the like pick your favorite, but my second most favorite would be building a Lorien with Yannicka.
Yeah, that was really nice.
It was really fun, especially when it's live streamed too, just chilling.
I miss a lot about that time with Lorien too, because I'm thinking, like, I'm looking at what has done well content-wise too. Like, a lot of the TikToks and shit we made for Crimes of Lorien has done wonders for the channel. And so, like, it's a shame I kind of, like, stopped doing that. Nintendo, got any favorite moment?
I think it was the very first time I logged on to the TSC world, and I think you were building or something, and I was like, yo, I would love to just like walk around and explore, and then you let me, and I was just like blown away by the detail and the sets, and just like how damn good it looked. So
He's so jealous of our server.
Yeah,
I really am. Like,
it's really showing in this podcast.
It's so cool. Like,
He just wishes he was us.
you just have your world right there, and there's so much detail in it. It's insane.
Yeah, we're pretty happy with it. Dominic, what about you?
I think I'll always... This isn't like a specific, pinpoint in time, but I'll always be nostalgic for the writing, like, pre-production of Lethane. I think that period of, like, couple months when we were finishing up the script, right? It's like not even the filming, but like finishing up the script. And I guess one particular moment would be, I remember before we signed off on the script, we got all of the producers at the time, I think literally every single one of the producers, plus Sophie, who at the time she wasn't even a producer yet, and we sat down and read through the script one line at a time. And every single line we would stop, or like for some of the smaller moments we'd go through like a scene, and at the end of every scene we would stop and say, is this bad, is this good, or is this great? And if it wasn't great, we would go back and fix the things that were wrong with it until we could confidently say that every single scene in the entire series, to down to like specific lines, was great. And it was only at we did that for like an hour, and we read through the entire script, and then at the end we were like, okay, it's great. And then we went on to make it, and like the things will always have a special place in my heart, and I think like it's the best project we've ever done in terms of quality, and I'm really proud of that. And I think because of the moments like that, and I think the fact that we had so much fun making it is a testament to how good it was. I think the fact you can tell that we enjoyed making it and that it was such a passion project.
I see. I was trying to think of like a moment, because I was trying to think of a moment that had that feeling of what you just described, and it is that moment. Like, I would say that is maybe like one of my favorite moments, is like us working on that project. But I will say something else instead, because it meant so much to me. But the finale to the Shadow Crown series, like the whole season finale, and I did the 18 years video, and we all gathered, the whole community, and we celebrated the whole thing, and the thought that I had finished the Shadow Crown story in a type of format was like crazy to me, because I thought I would always just start writing a chapter 1 in a book that would never happen. Since ever I started working on it, then the fact that I started making a Machinima and I finished the 3 seasons of it was such a monumental moment. Like, now it's crazy because we're way beyond that point. It's so much bigger now, but that was like quite a milestone to get through, and it was a very emotional moment for me. So I think that is gonna always stick with me. And yeah,
You were bawling your eyes out, weren't you?
I was crying. I'm not gonna lie about that. Yeah. So that concludes our little pre-recorded podcast. We're probably going to do something similar with live streams in 2015. I think we have had a fun run with like little educational podcast videos, and we have had some fun like little quests, and also like huge thank you to Lord Skilled for all the amount of work he put into this, setting up all the topics, or coming up with all the questions, doing all the challenges. Like he is like crazy for having done all this work, and I appreciate it so much. And I'll probably do something similar for the live streams, but like for all this year, huge thank you to Lord Skill. Thank you to all you guys who have joined me on the podcast. I'm excited for everything we got planned in 2015, which is gonna be huge. We're gonna finish Tribunal Part 2. Did I say 15?
15.
Yes.
Oh,
twice.
2025. That's what I mean. I've been saying 2015 for like too long now.
Yeah.
But yeah, 2025, we're gonna finish Tribunal Part 2 Volition, the movie edition. We're gonna probably start announcing the next big thing we got going on. And we also got the 10-year anniversary, which we're gonna do some fun stuff with. And other collabs and fun stuff that are coming up. I'm excited, and yeah, thank you guys for joining me. We had Jed, we had Dominic, we had Tanner. Thank you guys, and see you guys.
Bye bye.
Hell yeah.